Well, good time of day to all of you, my friends here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Welcome, welcome. The long wait is over. 2 weeks with no chess. Yeah, there was that little online thing that started earlier this week, but of course
Well,
we
good time
all...
of day to all of you, my friends here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Welcome, welcome.
Of course, we all anticipated the start of the Tata Stell tournament, and it started today. Not with a bang, though. I'm talking the Masters group. Well, I was following the games. Well, Magnus Carlsen was one of the first people to leave the stage. His opponent Wesley Saw had the white pieces, and the game honestly was not very interesting. It seemed like it was headed for a draw. Now, there is a lot of talk that Wesley is gonna be the main challenger to Magnus Carlsen in tournament chess this year, 2017. Now, this talk is based on what happened the year before, 2016. I would remind you, however, that if we roll back one more year, then in 2015, it seemed like the best tournament player was Anish Giri. He went through the inaugural year of Grand Chess Tour without losing a single game in all classical time control tournaments. At that time, I believe there were 3 of them, right? Norway, St. Louis, and London. So logically, we thought, okay, Anish is the youngest, and he's only gonna get better. And the competition is only gonna get, either worse or stay the same. However, the results of 2016 did not prove that, not at all. In fact, if anybody took a step back, that was Anish Giri. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Wesley is going to have a bad year in 2017. I have no reason to say this. But I would mention that if you look at the tournaments that Wesley played last year, and he won 2 of them, right? No, first thing you noticed that Magnus wasn't there. Magnus was busy with the World Championship. So Magnus was not there in St. Louis and London. And number 2, both tournaments followed the same script. Wesley gets off a good start and then he just sits there protecting, which is somewhat easier to do than to come back. And so I might say that Wesley's success in last year was largely owed to the fact that he was not a favorite to win anything. And now all eyes are on him. He's number 4 there on the rating list. And okay, well, he earned respect. Now let's see how he deals with it. Okay, so that game I didn't find particularly interesting. So what else was there? Karyakin Giri. Yeah, maybe a little pressure, like Sergey put on Anish's Naidorf. But not much action over there, and they also petered out to a draw. Hare Krishna Aronin, Vaitashik Nepomniachtchi, about the same. Alright, so maybe I should start with this game, or rather a fragment. Let me bring this up. Okay, I'm gonna open a PGN over here. I have some games. It's not like I came not prepared. I'm always prepared. Okay, let me see. Looking. Oh, oops. Yeah, let's start with this one. Easy. That's Andreikin versus Wei. Now, the Tata Stell tournament was always important tournament, not only because it's the tournament that starts a new year of chess competition, also because, the organizers, they stick to more traditional, some people even say outdated format of having 14 players in the tournament, rather than 10 or 8 or 6 or whatever it is. Well, what they want variety of players there. And that allows them to invite younger guys, guys who show promise, and give them a chance to, well, to prove that they belong. So among those is, of course, Wei. Now, Wei made a name for himself, I think in the summer of 2013, when he played so well in the knockout World Cup in Tromsø, Norway. But since then, everything's been kind of struggle for the young Wei. Well, he wasn't able to distinguish himself in competition with his teammates in the Chinese national team. If anything, no, he occupies now probably, I don't know, was that a third position maybe, or fourth in the rankings, behind possibly even, yeah, okay, fourth I would say, behind Ding Liren, Yu Yanyi and Li Chao. But of course, he gained valuable experience, and now a chance for him to show off his talents in the YKNZ tournament. There's also his opponent, Dmitry Andreikin. Well, Andreikin, same age as Carlsen, same great year, 1990, that great crop of players that were born in that year. Now they, I don't know, are they dominating the chess world? Yeah. Well, Carlsen, Karyakin, Maxim Vashiel-Agraf, Nepomniachtchi is over there, breaking into a top 100, top 10. And now Andreikin not that far behind, you know. So come to think of that, if we're gonna organize a chess Olympiad based on birth year 1990 should probably win it. Okay. So Andreikin, don't know, it's hard to say what kind of shape he's gonna be in. Seems like Dmitry is focusing on chess more than he did before. I think he finished his studies at the university, or maybe took a break, I don't really know. He's a very private man. He's married now, has a child, so now it's time to focus, you know. That's what helped Karyakin at some moment a few years ago, once he took care of his personal life. So now Andreikin has a chance, obviously still young, only 26, going on 27, good physical shape. Now, a book on Andreikin was always that he plays offbeat openings. So he plays some Trampovsky and all this. No, it doesn't seem very unusual these days. Everybody plays the London. So he put some pressure there, and that was actually not a Trampovsky. It was an e4 opening. It was a Petrov that went into this almost symmetrical position. And White was able to, well, break up the pawn structure over there and get the f5 square for the knight. So he's about to play knight f5 check, which would, I don't know, win the game or at least win a pawn on h6. But Wei calculated everything. He actually didn't have to go for this position. From far ahead, he went for this that looked terribly dangerous because he calculated all king and pawn endgames. Now, time control had been reached there because f6 was played on move 40. And now Andreikin had a long thing. I'm sure he wasn't terribly upset because he realized that he is not risking to lose, but nonetheless, well, the longer he thought, then I think the more frustrated he became, because he realized that he basically could not continue applying pressure, because then this move comes. You don't get to play knight f5 because the knight takes with check. That's essentially important. Once you move the king away, then black moves the rook out. So he was able to clear out the f7 square, and now the e7 knight controls f5, and basically white has nothing with that knight on h4. No advantage whatsoever. So Dmitry Andreikin played this. And now king e6. Well, when we look at this position, we can see that the kings are not in opposition, obviously, but they like two important squares. So whoever has to move the king back is gonna allow the opponent to move forward. It particularly applies to black. Like for example, he goes king. If he goes king back to e7, then white of course comes up king f5, and then you go king f7. Now you hold that position, but if you lose your turn, or rather, if you're forced to play, then you're gonna have to give way and allow the white king to infiltrate to the 6th rank with decisive effect. There is one more important thing here. If you look at all this, look at that little spare move that white has in his disposal. So this endgame looks terribly dangerous for black. And I really applaud, efforts of Wei Yi to actually look at this, at the danger of spending the rest of his time and not having this option. But he figured it all out, and it's really a draw. I wasn't able to disprove it. Alright, so what white needs to do? White needs to get the pawns on the queen side, to block the pawns, force black to move. And then he advances the king to f5, and in reply to king f7, he only then would spend his reserve move with the back g pawn. That's the only way it'll work. But let's see if it's possible. Suppose b3. Now a5. Now why am I playing a5? Well, if I played b5, I would lose the game, right? Pawn goes forward, c6, a3. No more pawn moves. Back, there, and then g3. So you go this way, and then the king goes for that run. I'm not sure. Maybe black will also get a queen, but white is gonna be in a better position for sure. But okay, maybe only white gets a queen. Let's calculate. This. Okay, that's enough in this position just to play king c5. Now, pawn's queen, and then it's white's turn, and white can win the remaining pawn on the king side, and have a substantial advantage there in the queen endgame. His king is closer to the pawns. Alright, I expected that. So black cannot do this. But the trick is, when white plays b3, is to leave the pawn that has a choice of going 1 square or 2 squares, and first move the pawn that is already committed. That helps your calculation. a5. Now, if white goes, what can white go? Well, for example, c4. He's actually not threatening this, and then black can do that. In this situation, the problem is that white has a long way to go before he clears out the path for the g-pawn. So black takes there. Okay, might as well trade that. And here, there, c4. Now, black's ahead, right? Now, white is fortunate also to queen his pawn. But once this happens... Oh yeah, it's actually unfortunate. He cannot even queen the pawn. He walks into a check. So white is in big trouble, and well, for sure he's lost in this position. Yeah, so it's an unpleasant discovery for white, because if you can't force the opponent to play this, the plan was to play c5, right? Then you have tons of spare moves there, a3, a4, and then you win the game. But he's not playing c6, he does this. When you do c5 in this situation, black plays that. b4, c6, and white is forced to spend his spare pawn move too soon. Now the accurate move king e7, and then they go king f7. Draw. All lines were similar to this. Anyway, Draken started with that, b6, a5. Alright, not b5, because of a5. There was one more interesting moment in this endgame. After black played this, white moved the king back, and we kind of, I don't know, just a very innocent smile on his face, right? He goes king d6. Oh, I just want to stay there, you know, close to my f6 pawn and protect it. But Andreykin here saw through this deception. If he played king e3, believe me or not, that's black who would win the game, because he has this shot, b5. One should never forget about this, because the black king now is in the square. So you take this way and he takes. Useless to push the pawn forward. So white runs with the king, so is black. And black is always one step ahead. So he arrives to the a-file sooner, wins this pawn, and then wins the game. Now Andreykin woke up to this reality and he took, went over there. Okay, nothing to be done. Draw agreed. Okay, good start for VE. He played solidly, held the draw with the black pieces. Andreykin must be a little disappointed, but no, well, he needs to get into this tournament. Well, we haven't seen Andreykin playing any top-level events for 2 years. Almost, I would say, 3 years. Last time he played a real top event, that was almost 3 years. That was the Hanti Mansi's Candidates Tournament. That was 2014. That's the one Anand qualified to play Carlsen again for the second match. Alright, Dmitry Andreykin has a lot of supporters, so they hope that he will do well. Okay. Now, to the game that was the only decisive result today in Masters tournament. The Ukrainian Grandmaster Pavel Lyanov had white against Richard Rapport. When I made my trip to China just last month in December last year, well, I saw some interesting things, things that I never saw before. But among my acquisitions there was another, to meet Richard Rapport, who was there with his wife, Giovanna, who's a chess player, and they played in the open tournament where I played, and then Richard stayed there to play Wei in the match. Well, they both left only excellent impression on me. I mean, the Rapport couple, the very nice young people, and I count myself now among Rapport's fans, supporters. So I watched his games in our open tournament, and I knew before that Richard always goes his own way. So almost every game of his is gonna feature some unusual opening. Yeah, the China trip, I was only able to do one show about this, but I don't know. It just didn't quite work out, guys. I'm sorry about this. I really planned to talk a lot about this tournament, but I got a job to do today. Sorry, cannot get distracted. Alright, knight f3 e6. Okay, it's a move order. Now c5. White is invited to play e4 if he wants the Sicilian. But then this. But what white wants, Elyanov is not an e4 player. He likes d4 and, he's anticipating black to play d5, then he can get his white side of the Tarrasch. Excellent. Okay, what else can black do there? We can play knight f6 and then later continue with b6. We can play knight f6 and play d5 and take with the knight. Interesting. G5. Oh boy. Alright, one thing I noticed here. If G6, then white immediately plays D4. Without giving black a chance to bring the bishop over there and put too much pressure against D4. So I guess when you do it rapport way G5, then in reply to D4 you have G4, right? Yeah. So you attack the knight and win the pawn on D4. I've never seen this, but turns out that Richard already played it. Okay, let me... Yeah. Funny, right? These days. People are prepared for everything. Ulyanov was prepared. He actually didn't miss that game. It was Abramovich rapport, played in 2014. And he followed this game for quite a few moves. So he played d3, now h6, develops. Now white plays this typical move, forcing the g-pawn to go forward. I mean, I don't know, I can't really tell, if it's really weakening, because white needs to open up the center, and he's far away from doing this. But nonetheless, he will try. So that's why e3. I don't know if black is forced to play this way, but no, well, he needed to protect the pawn on g4. Now white goes knight b3. This whole thing actually happened in that game, 2014. Boshko Abramovich was white, Richard Rapport was black. Yeah, this is where it branched out. The well-prepared Ulyanov castled. The stem game went d5. Well, when you play against c5 and f5, that's what you wanna do, right? You wanna strike right in the middle, break up the pawn structure and get some squares. Well, white realizes, of course, that he left a knight on b3 out of play, and blocked also that bishop on c1. He's just hoping that his position is going to be sturdy enough for him to be able to circle around with the knight and keep a firm grip on the position. Well, Abramovich wasn't able to do this because of this capture. Bishop takes c3. A very unusual setup, but this is what Rapport likes. I'm sure he was looking to give up the exchange. That would be lovely. Look at this. Don't you love black's position? You hit this, you play knight f3, you're probably winning by force here. You got knight e2. Okay, let me finish this. Check, there. It's not mate, but you're forced to play queen d3. Of course. Yeah, well, d5 didn't turn out very well. I mean, Abramovich was able to minimize the damage by playing e4. It's a great move. He really had no other choice. He needs to bring that bishop out, and never mind the pawn on c4. Sharp struggle ensued, and the game was drawn. Ulyanov's well prepared, so he doesn't want to push d5 yet, so he castles. Castles, queen e2. And now Rapport went e5. I know, well, it's a logical move, and no, he's playing to gain advantage, to attack. He wants to put his pawn to e4. Nonetheless, maybe the timing is not best. White's about to play rook d1, right? This would create a threat of capturing on c5 twice. We need to think about where the queen's gonna go. One Dutch way, of course, is to move the queen to e8 and to the king side. But we immediately spot a problem with that. It's the b5 square for the white knight. To come to b5, hit d6, hit c7. That's why I don't even like bishop b7, because after this, I'm not quite sure how to continue. Maybe I would play queen b8. But probably it's better to play a6. Maybe then he worried about d5. Or this way, rook d1, queen c7, d5. Possible, but nonetheless, we can try the same approach. I'm not even sure about capturing on c3. What about this? Can we just give up the exchange playing like that? The f3 square is worth it. I think a6 and queen c7, and I'm taking away b5. Would be a playable idea. I mean, as I said, I'm not sure white is doing so well in this whole thing. Because I don't like the knight on b3 and bishop on c1. Well, the position of these two pieces allows black to play aggressively, the way he does on this line. But e5 now, rook d1. And he took. I guess the idea was to just play e4. Now black is waiting for white to move the d pawn forward, and he can play knight e5 and eventually come to e3. White, of course, is in a hurry to do this. But black also has some kind of knight g6, and who knows, he might even sacrifice. Actually, this position looks very attractive for black. So he's looking to play f4, he's looking to sacrifice. He has a lot going there on the king side. How did Ulyanov solve this problem? By playing this surprising move, knight d5. So he uses the strength of his bishop on the long diagonal to create threats. I mean, black could probably play even rook b8, right? How is this different? Takes, e4. Yeah, maybe he can take. It's somewhat easier for white because he was able to trade a pair of knights. So that'll be easier to defend the king side. If he defends the king side, and here the bishop can come out to f4, then actually white has a good game, because with pieces disappearing from the board, black's position feels more and more exposed. What do you think, guys? Ears 61, tell me. I like the move knight d5. I think only this move allows white to keep a balanced position. Which would appear after this, right? Knight takes d4, there, takes, there, pawn takes. Without knights on the board, I don't think black can attack anymore. If he pushes forward, he loses the e4 pawn. But he has this. And now he aims to play d5. No, even if black cannot checkmate white, then he just uses his strong pawns on the king side and the center to keep the g2 bishop out of play. I mean, all in all, I don't see any reason for black to end up in a bad position, but somehow Richard did. He played d3, that's very unfortunate. I don't really know why he needed this. I guess his idea was to keep the white pawn on e3 so that bishop cannot come out. But he lost time. Now give credit to Ulyanov. A lot of people would grab this pawn. Not Pavel. Pavel figured, no, it's not the right move. I guess in this case, Black would play on the strength of this bishop and on the counter-attack. So he wants to play rook d8, intercept the d file, and the white pieces, bishop c1 and rook a1, are really late, coming into this party. Much better play from Ulyanov. Well, Pavel is kind of an assuming player, He doesn't have many flashy wins to his credit, but look, he's been steadily presented there, at the 2750 level, which is not easy to do when you play chess in a lot of team events like he does, and he doesn't only rely on the invitations to top tournaments. So that's not an easy task, and Pavel's been able to answer the call already for quite some time. He's just this kind of player, that to play the right move, like queen c2 in this situation. He doesn't get overly excited, and he always keeps in mind the positional factors present, and this game very well illustrates his style. So Richard is trying, right? Queen d7, and now b3. Look, finally, you see how white is able to address the major issue that he has, which is the poor development and bad position of the knight and the dark square bishop. Everything comes in place. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe Black needed to go rook c8 with the idea of either d5 or b5. Yeah, this is logical, right? We're sending this knight to e5 and then great squares, but one thing here is that this check actually makes white happy, because Black has advanced pawns, but he cannot get around with the queen and checkmate on g2. The knight on f4 cannot be pushed out of there, and the black bishop becomes sort of useless. The best thing you can do is to anchor it with the pawns there on e4, and it becomes like a big pawn. But what about pressure on the d file and the weak black king? Too many pieces are exchanged in this situation for Black to even think of his attacking chances. He doesn't have any. Knight e2 was great. So instead came knight d3. Now he takes and returns with the knight to d4. Now that's also high quality play. I thought white would play this. Well, trying to remove the knight and then have the pressure on the d file. The problem is that after this, you don't know how to recapture. If you take with the g pawn, you probably at some moment gonna be losing that pawn on h4. And if you take with the e pawn, then say after queen e7, Black retains this idea of playing e3 at the right moment. So white, of course, will attack d6. He may double up and even triple up. Black will defend, but he will be looking to play e3. So Ulyanov is not happy with that. He returns to d4 and then plays his star move. Now, this exchange sacrifice was debated already. I went to a couple of websites. People, obviously, it's the only game that produced decisive result. So they talk a lot about this, and the consensus is just, that's real good play from white. It's sort of obvious sacrifice, because you have the rook back there, and the black knight obviously dominates the white rooks, and you get a pawn together with that. Well, but thing is to consider it a winning attempt. attempt and prefer this position to the one that he could have easily obtained by playing knight f4, it's remarkable. Now this is good. Richard calculated it well. On this one he had queen f3, attacking the knight and then getting to f2. Well, white returns. I prefer white here. Well, anybody would prefer white. But I think white won this game not because this position is winning. It's because Richard played one unfortunate move here. This may have been okay, but queen f3 was unfortunate. Okay, let's suppose he just waits. I mean, white enjoys, this total comfort and nothing can touch him, but no, he's also supposed to try to win this game. And I'm not sure how. On this, queen e5. This. Alright, black has to avoid that. That's a trap. White will pick up the second pawn. We don't want that. So instead some other move. Maybe rook f7. This. Now this is okay. She can protect that pawn from e7. White probably does this. King there. h5. I went this far. Queen e7. No, still not 100% convincing. I even looked at this. Double attack, I win a pawn. No, I don't. So anyway, white's better, but they could circle around for a long time. Now, about the players here. Well, it's probably Elianov's most favorite position to have this with white. And for Rapport, having to defend kind of passively and all his attacking aspirations, they're all gone. It was probably a little depressing. But this is what Richard has to learn. Well, I'm not telling him to stop playing g5, I like this. He has his individuality and it brings him success. But things are not always gonna go his way, and when they don't go his way, he has to be, just a little tougher, in defense. This was a bad move. What's the difference? No, you'll see in two moves. Now, Elianov played this. Turns out that now queen e4 is bad, right? Because of that. He wins this pawn. But if you don't play queen e4, then rook d4 comes anyway, and rook f4, forget about the f5 pawn. He's actually trying to trap the queen. Once Richard realized that, he played a move that otherwise cannot be understood. But now it's understandable. So he's thinking of playing b5. Well, just for white it takes a little bit longer. So suppose white is in this, has this intention to trap the queen. He still cannot do this on account of queen takes d5. He has to play one more move, and then comes this, and then here, and then the files are open. Black can already play this, and he's threatening to mate. So white never got around to playing rook f4. So from that point of view, a6 is understandable, but no, of course it just drops a pawn without getting any files open. Elianov just keeps the position intact. He's in no hurry to trade anything. Just moves his pieces, brings the knight back. So they reached the time control. Rapport here gave up. I understand that. He's losing another pawn and he's just not getting anywhere with his play. Well, great technical display from Ulyanov. He shows that, no, he has that. We always knew that he had it and it's still there. You get him the kind of position like this, he's very tough. He is very tough. For Richard, he shouldn't get discouraged, you know. I think he had a good opening going. Maybe played a little too conventionally. I particularly don't like the idea of leaving the pawn structure intact and circling the knight around to come to d3, only to provoke a rather obvious sacrifice. Yeah. So, excuse me. So this was our decisive game of today. Did you like it? I want to hear some comments. You guys are extremely quiet over there. Tell me who plays who tomorrow. Do you know? I don't. I know Magnus is gonna get white. All eyes on Magnus Carlsen. Well, in the meantime, since there wasn't a whole lot to... Oh, one more game I didn't mention. A great effort by Bhaskaran Adiban with the white pieces against Luke Van Vele. It seemed, you know, that Adiban was about to obtain big advantage, but somehow Luke, who's actually playing better and these days, was able to neutralize White's serious initiative and held a draw in the endgame. Speaking of Luke Van Vele, well, I know he plays there every year, and people can recall a lot of tournaments when people basically waited for the return to play Van Vele, particularly with the white pieces. But it may not continue this year. One thing there, if you look at the last year's event, where Van Vele didn't play well, he was rated 2640. Now he's rated 2695. This is not a joke. He almost made it back to the 2700 territory, which is not easy to do considering that Luke is what now? 30... No, what I'm talking about. He's 45 years old this year. Yeah, 45 years old. But he's happily married now, he has a child. Well, those things are positive. Sometimes chess players just need some positive things in their personal life. Alright, so we have Aronian versus VE, Nepomniachtchi versus Andreikin, the Russian battle, Carlsen Wojtaszek. Yeah. No, well, there is something over there, right? Wojtaszek, of course, is Anand's principal coach and opening expert. Yeah, but Magnus is certainly looking to take this game. Anish Giri plays Wesley So. I'm actually curious about this game. I think Anish... Well, 2016 is over. He can write this off as whatever. Too busy, you know, with personal life and other things. Now time to focus, time to get better. Well, what better opportunity than early in the tournament and his home field advantage there in Holland, and to take out the guy who kind of stole Anish's thunder. No. Alright, Rapport has white against Karyakin, that's always interesting. Van Vele with white against Ulyanov. Okay. Hare Krishna Adiban, the Indian battle. Interesting. Now, in the meantime, since I didn't have that many games to show you from Masters section, I would like to talk about the Challenges section. Or something that used to be referred to B tournament. I guess maybe it's a little degrading, particularly since the tournament has become quite strong in the past 5 years or 10 years or so. And I saw a lot of interesting players competing in this tournament. And the first game that grabbed my attention was a game between... No, the game of Jeffrey Shang, right? No, our American star, who is, even before he reached his 16th birthday, convincingly won world junior championship under 20. Now this nice development curve, almost Fischer, Kasparov like, Carlsen like. So we're looking at Jeffrey to do well in this tournament. But of course, as usual, American players, I've been in this situation. You have to deal with the travel, with the jet lag. And the start didn't work out for Jeffrey. And he also faced a tough opponent, Grandmaster Rager of Austria, who is quietly in his own way, and he's not that old. I think he's in his mid-20s probably, quietly in his own way improving. And little bit of opening trickery, and now they get into the Najdorf, of course, with the modern h3 line. No, everything's fine there. Maybe the knight is somewhat unusual on g3, but white is thinking, of course, of playing f5. Well, bad thing is he cannot support it with the g-pawn, but there is a chance of playing the knight to h5, and trading that knight. So the knight is not going to be totally useless. There is something similar I know from the old Fischer-Sozin attack, where the bishop is on b3. There was an old classic, the game between Robert Byrne and Bobby Fischer. You can find it everywhere, where Fischer played h5 instead of castling. And I was thinking that maybe black should have gone h5. But then I realized that white then is not going to play f5. f5 would be a mistake, because then he's unable to utilize this knight at all. The center is blocked. The blocking is quite okay in the center. No, he should play it differently. He should probably try the other side, and then play something like this. This looks attractive for white now, because now h5 is just a weakening move. If g6, white now pushes forward. Strong initiative to white. Advantage. So now I understand why castles was played. But now one more preparation, and now Rager executes his plan. Now that's what it is. So he's gonna trade everything on f6, leaving black with the dark square bishop, and then he's gonna trade the light square bishops and play knight d5. If anything, Rager gets points for consistency. The game actually is very consistent. All trades, knight d5, pawn sacrifice. We've seen this before. Alright. What's required here of Jeffrey Shang? Well, kind of keep his head straight. a5 is a good start. Now, white plays queen e3. It's a multi-purpose move to invade h6 at the right moment and also prepare rook c1. I looked at something like rook d8 here. I'm not sure. Capture, and then this move. What I wanted to do, I wanted to bring the king to e7. Even at the cost of the h7 pawn. h7 pawn is irrelevant. Now, of course, you can accuse me in trying to get back into my favorite Richter-Hauser structure, but hey, well, one is supposed to do what he does best, right? Now, yeah, if the black king arrives there in e7, then everything's good. Problem is this move. I'm not quite sure I mean, would love to play rook c2 here. Maybe that move was bad, rook d8. Maybe the rook had to go to e8. So now white has some initiative here. No, black is still up a pawn, but you have to be careful, you know, with that queen on it. Let me play this mysterious move. Now if takes and goes there, we're gonna see some difference. I'm gonna play rook c2. Threaten mate. Yeah, I don't know if it's really so important. White, by the way, can play rook e1 himself here. Yeah, probably white has some initiative. But okay, king h8. Not a bad move. Rook ac1. Rager gets down to business. Now this, I believe, is nice in between capture. Now the most logical seems this, right? To get the queen over there, grab that pawn with check and quickly lift the rook and checkmate. Problem is that now the white rook is off the open file. And when this happens, you don't have rook c8 mate. In fact, if anybody mates here, that's black. Huh. Oh, last thing you want here is to play rook g1. In those positions and queens and rooks on the board, it's just essentially important to keep your pieces active. But not the king. Don't keep your king active. Now it's gonna be perpetual check for sure. It's impossible to run away. No, not g4. So because of this line, Marcus Rager took back with the rook. Now on this he went over there, so there is no rook g8, because then he takes the pawn and mates from c8. So Jeffrey went here, and now queen d2. Rook f1. The next move looks terribly passive, you know. What? Rook a8? What's rook a8? What does it have to do with anything? Okay, maybe rook c8. Maybe rook c8 wasn't that good on account of what actually? I'm not quite sure. White still cannot do queen g5 and f6. But the main idea to me would be to play h5. So I already anticipate this, rook f3. So at that moment it's important for us to be able to put the pawn on h4. I think h5 was the best move. Now after rook f3, I look at this. Actually I got queen h6. Oh, black has near winning advantage on the queen side. If I can just go to the endgame. Maybe I can't. Queen e7. White still has this annoying pressure. I go back. Wanna play rook g8. h4. Rook g8. More pressure. Okay. Well, it's probably gonna end in a draw now. I expect one side or another give a perpetual check. So basically there wasn't much wrong with Jeffrey's position if he played h5. I don't like that what he did. He played here. Now he's in trouble. I think he missed something here. Well, clearly he never intended to go king d8 because, no, after he was forced to do this and queen takes, clearly that white is better and black looking just for some odd chance maybe to deliver perpetual check. His position is not satisfactory. So maybe the thing was that king e6, right? That's what he counted on. But he didn't play it. I'm not quite sure why. Like on this, for example, there is check and then capturing that pawn, taking control over g4 square, so the white queen doesn't get to mate. If they do it right away, such as this way, with the terrible threat of rook f3, and also attacking the rook, and then maybe there is rook f8. I don't see how black gets mated here. Maybe he doesn't. So king e6 wasn't played. I don't know. Let's write it off to jet lag, and no. It takes a little bit for a young player to get used to this new stage. Jeffrey accomplished a lot, in our tournaments in the United States. Aside of winning World Junior, he proved to be a force to win any open in the United States. He won already a few of them. But it's somewhat different here. Obviously, opponent's gonna be well prepared. No, it's one game a day, well, and all that. Also, the tournament's gonna be much longer, right? So he has to sit there, through almost near 3 weeks of competition. That's hard to do. So queen takes f7, and now Rager finishes off nicely. So he plays this move, for now preventing the a-pawn from going too far. I guess on this move he intended king h2, and now if you bring this, apparently this seems a winning idea, right? To checkmate once the black queen is away from f4. But if you don't play queen b2, then you don't really have any other way of supporting your a-pawn. So he played check and then pinned. Well, I needed that pawn on h5 long time ago. Some moves that are played there. I took this pawn. I don't know, h5. No, I understand that was the plan, but it loses by force. Maybe rook e6 had to be played. No, h5 is still a threat. So I don't know if white has the time to eliminate the pawn on a3 and so on. I mean, rook e6 was the only way to continue. So kinda Jeffrey fell apart here and then missed that move. Now, of course, mate is threatening, and you can't go there because you lose your rook with check. So anyway, had to resign here. Anyway, I'm sure Jeffrey will play better in the future rounds, but so I hope he doesn't get discouraged. Okay. So that was the game that kind of captured my attention, but I also looked at some other games. I liked this one. The game between two Dutch players. Once again, I'm showing you the games from the Challenger group. White was Van Forest. I think is a very talented young player. I remember a story about him last year when just before the Dutch team departed for Chess Olympiad in Baku, they completed the Dutch championship, in which the story was in that tournament is the two-man race. This young guy, Van Forest and Van Wille. So they went head-to-head throughout the whole thing, and in the end, the youngster edged the veteran and captured the title. And then guess what, he still was not in Baku because the team had already been decided. Well, the Dutch team actually started well in that Olympiad, but then they quickly faded and had a very remarkable result. I guess they were missing Van Forest, their new national champion. I would say it's not wise, not to take a national champion on Olympic team. And anyway, there wasn't a whole lot of time between the tournaments, of course. And now he plays against Lamy, who's a popular grandmaster, but probably his biggest fans maybe expected more from him, because some 10 years ago, really he looked like a new Dutch star. And things kind of didn't work out like this yet. Let's see. So we have the classical line of the Caracan. Yeah, in these days, black of course castles short. Long gone are the days, of old Karpov games where black would castle long and then would stand slightly worse for a long time. Now they play sharper. They actually provoke white to do something super aggressive with g4 and all that, and black holds his own. And this move, relatively new idea. Normally it's castles short or some move queen b6. Oops, it's not how the queen moves. Queen moves to b6. But rook c8 has its advantages, obviously, to support c5. Well, the only thing is that when you play c5, you always have to make sure that the pawn cannot go to d5. One purpose of having the queen on b6, that in this line, he would take on f6 with the bishop, and white couldn't go d5 because of the mate. But the rook on c8, it doesn't put any pressure against b2. I'm not the only one here with astigmatism, right? So I cannot trace straight lines. What is Lamy doing, huh? How can he accept this position? It's terrible, because now it's the light squares, and not only d5 and f5, and the knight on d7 is bad. All because of this. White doesn't even have the pawn on c4, so the diagonal can be blocked. Just like Van Forest did. This is totally unacceptable. I have no idea why he took with the bishop. Already knight takes f6 has been played. This? Who's afraid of queen trade in the Caracan? Nobody. Anyway, shocking. Already white has a large advantage here. e5, bishop e3, queen d6. I understand why queen d6 was played. Lamy obviously realizes that queen is not a great blocker, but no, on queen c7, g4. You can't castle. g5 is coming. You can't do anything. So he plays queen d6. Now white played knight d4. Did I mention the f5 square? I guess I did. Well, yeah, if the queen was on c7, this whole thing would not have worked, because black could take the knight. That's why I advocated queen c7 instead of queen d6. Now he does this, and of course knight f5. Like if black didn't have problems before that, now the white knight is on f5. Let me employ the counter-attacking move, knight d3. I like that. I like that. I like knight d3. But there is a problem there. It's a tactical problem. Well, which I don't know if Lamy really anticipated that. Clearly Van Forest saw it. Well, sometimes the whole thing hangs on one tactical line, on one move. So there it goes. He took on g7. Now, truth to tell, if it wasn't working, suppose it's not working, then white has a solid option on rook h3. Now, so he can use this rook. Now, this is sort of not a standard way, I would probably think of more conventional way, something involving g4 and keeping the king in the middle. But, alright. No, that was his choice to go for knight d4. But he can continue in the same vein by going rook g3 and hitting that pawn on g7. I mean, you want to do like Karpov there? Well, maybe you could, yeah. I mean, you're playing down a pawn after knight takes h6. I mean, rook h7, nah, come on. I can't be serious playing moves like this. Nah. I'm not sure what to play. Okay, king f8, convince me. I actually looked a little bit at this line. Queen takes d5. No, that's what black absolutely has to do. He has to eliminate this pawn. But he has king in the middle, rooks are not connected. That one is shaky. Something's gonna give, right? Takes, rook c6, knight f5. I mean, it's great to have a knight on d3, and then I can see queen b5, I can see rook a6, but there is mate coming here too, and probably faster. I think white would have been winning, but he did go knight g7. Why is white even playing this? Is he about to lose the pawn on d5 and his rooks are not participating in the attack? The answer is the tactical shot, bishop c5. That's what 1-4 saw. Well, thing is, that if you take with the knight, then, oh boy, that takes, pushes the king back. Knight e6, anyone? Nobody wants to play knight e6. Forget about knight e6. Anyway, then the rook is gonna be lost. So, he had to take with the rook. Is this totally lost? Queen f5. Obvious move. Alright, we're setting up something. Smothered mate. Bad move in reality. Actually, terrible move. He's lost after that. The right move, strangely, would be queen d6. I know, now a large material deficit, but... Well, the knight on d3 is worth something. Remember, Ulyanov had to sacrifice the exchange. Are you gonna do the same thing now? But you don't have a grip on the position, not the kind of grip that Ulyanov had. Otherwise, rook takes d5, and then queen b6, rook b5, as I mentioned. Maybe there's a practical chance, but after this it was over. He took on h6. Oh boy, I love pawns like this. Now white doesn't have to be inventive, doesn't have to position his rooks or sacrifice. All he needs now is to move the queen away and push the h-pawn forward. That h6 pawn was really very important. Maybe let me just quit. I don't know. Yeah, well. Designs. Alright, great victory for 1-4. I believe that he's going to be competing in this tournament. Now, there is a talk over there, I don't know, talk of the town. I'm not in town, I'm like as far away from chess centers as humanly possible. But I have the internet. So I read, some people complain, oh, the challenger group is so weak now. Weak? I don't think so. A lot of young players. Aside of the people I mentioned, Rager is not weak at all. 2697 is that weak now. Jeffrey Shong is not weak. What about Gawain Jones and Niels Grandelius? I mean, this is like a perfect tournament. All young players. Who cares if you bring some, I don't know, some old 2700 guy who's been around the block, a few times, and you know that he had reached his ceiling a long time ago. Alright, Ilya Smirin. I like to invite some veterans, and I think Ilya is always gonna give you a good game. He plays sharp openings, King's Indian, he plays a 4 with white. Now, Eric Hansen played Arian Tari. Tari is like what? Norway next big hope after Magnus Carlsen? I don't know if Arian Tari is gonna deliver, but he played reasonably well in recent tournaments. Maybe rating is not there yet, 2584. Eric Hansen is great. Benjamin Bok, then Tingye, the Chinese woman grandmaster. Now I will show you one more game. I don't know if it's best, but I really saved it for last. How about this? Sopiko Guramishvili, Mrs. Giri, and her opponent is one of China's most exciting young players. He's not really high up there in the rating department, but I played him in that Hainan International Tournament. We had an incredible up and down game, which in the end I should have lost, but escaped by skin of my teeth, it was a draw. Lu Shanlei. Now, this was something. Okay, let's watch this game. It's the last game for today. Promise. Now, Sopiko Guramishvili, she made a series of videos on the Chess24 about the Najdorf, right? And people say, what does she know about the Najdorf? Alright. Maybe she does know a few things about Najdorf. So she plays this knight f3 line. Yeah, it's playable. No, I'm no big fan of the move bishop e7, but I prefer the old Pologaevsky move queen c7, but it's, I guess, a matter of choice. Modern games, you actually see more of this. And she plays very directly. She takes on e6. Most of the time we see bishop b3. Alright, captures back and then this. Well, maybe this is how they play chess in their family. We don't know. Those games never get published between Mr. and Mrs. Giri. Okay. Queen h3 is coming. And h6 is not helping a whole lot. Still queen h3. Knight c6. There she goes. Now, according to theory, black is supposed to play in this position the move knight d8. Oh no, well, I'm not showing Carlsen and so. We're gonna be watching these guys, every day. Sooner or later they're gonna produce some good games. They're favorites of this tournament. I totally take advantage of the opportunity to talk about the challengers. Because tomorrow we may have 5 decisive results in the top group and nobody's gonna be able to even mention what happened in the challengers. Okay, anyway, knight d8 is book, on which white can continue with this. Now you look at this and you wonder, how come the Najdorf is still alive? Mrs. Giri knows the refutation. Well, the line continues, however. Now there is a problem. When you take with the queen, yeah, you can do this, but then there is that move. So the bishop escapes. King f7 becomes a threat to trap the knight. So you're forced to do this, then you do that, and of course knight takes e4. Look at this acrobatics, eh? Black was able to get this pawn back. He's only down one pawn, and he's gonna hit the knight, and he's on the c3 as well. I think black is just doing okay in this. Anyway, that was an old theory. Lu Shanlei plays d5. It's actually possible. Okay, this is not Wesley So Magnus Carlsen. No. I wish they played like this. Knight d5. Okay. Has to take this piece and of course castles. She. Indeed. Mrs. Giri, she's giving us a show. What to do? I thought of king f7. Maybe that's the right move. to attack this, to attack the knight. Of course, white can repeat. You have to be extremely careful choosing a square for your king. You can walk into some kind of check and discover the attack. So I guess king f8 is the move. But then of course white can just repeat. Lu Shanwei didn't want that, but I'm not sure it would for sure happen. He played knight d4. Check. Takes. Now I have a lot of concerns about black's position. No, clearly he's about to lose his extra piece. His king is uncastled, and he's also down a couple of pawns. Now the line I assume Lu Shanwei counted on would start with this. And you think, okay, they take on e5, I take back, and white is run out of minor pieces, he can no longer attack. Bishop and knight, well, the rook on the board, the queen on the board, I'm gonna be okay. Now this disruptive check, well, changes this whole thing. You don't want to go to g6 because there's queen g3 followed by capturing the pawn on e5. But going back just looks terrible. Now the pieces are not coordinated. You take on e5. At very least you lose on b7. No, black's in trouble here. So he did this. Alright, 3 pieces for queen. I always say one thing to my students, and every time, I get a chance to open my mouth in the public, I tell one thing, I always repeat it. When you play against the queen, when you have any kind of compensation for a queen, well, shuffle that deck any way you can, get a rook and a minor piece, and pawns, 3 minor pieces, 2 rooks and a minor piece, whatever. One single most important thing is the safety of your king. You really cannot be successful playing against the opponent's queen when your king is on the run. Because the power of the queen will multiply because of the queen's ability to give checks. Virtually, like the queen will be able to reach any square on the chessboard in 2 moves. Because the first move is going to be check. Video down. Oi, oi, oi. Video down. Why is that? Guys, I'm still broadcasting. Refresh it. I refreshed it and I got it back. No, not a problem. I was keeping an eye on the audio there and on my... No, Porty does, like refresh. You'll get it back. So anyway, in my opinion, this whole thing is not gonna work for black. It's not gonna work for black. And rook f1. Well, she plays perfect chess, right? Get your pieces into play. Attack. Now h5. This is not an attempt to attack or trap the queen. It's an attempt to defend against things involving queen h5 check or possibly g4. Now queen f5 on that pawn. I just now this. She piles up rook d5. More pawns. Thank you. Back. More pawns. I'll bring you to a critical position. Look how skillfully she plays. That rook sat on d5 for a long time. Actually, one of the weapons that the side with the queen always has, that very cavalier with material. A little thing like giving up the exchange, as long as it improves your queen, is usually the way to go. Since the material has been kind of broken up, and Well, then the usual standard, oh, well, I cannot give up pawns and all that. They no longer apply. Well, the positions inherently are much sharper. And Sapiko is playing exactly how position demands. And look at her, she has what? How many pawns? She has 3 pawns. I mean, that's 3 extra pawns. Imagine, take away all these pieces and put the black queen somewhere on e7. You would think, okay, if there is no mate on b2, then of course black loses. Why should it be any different with the pieces? Maybe even easier for white. But Lushanway doesn't give up. He plays this. Time trouble. I mean, think about it. I mean, clearly, Sapiko Gramishvili proved to us that she can play chess, like we didn't know it before. But of course it's one thing to be a good player, and another is to play well in that particular situation, that particular day, that particular moment. I mean, she's raising a family, right? Young mother, She didn't have a chance to play in many tournaments. And, well, of course, she's happy and excited to play somewhere, but it's gonna take a little while before she gets her practical skills back. And in this situation, well, perhaps for sure unnecessary. She played rook takes c5. It's a good move for blitz, right? But probably it was unnecessary. A solid move like rook d4, just preparing to play the pawn to e5, break up the coordination. Look at that queen, is looking to capture the rook. I looked at this. Another thing, right? When the opponent doesn't have a queen, you can play moves like this. Your king running out in the open may be able to escape. b4 is a good move, probably better than b3. Need to play a few accurate moves, like avoid this, right? So that would allow black to escape, because this is a very known mechanism with rook and knight. If you escape the knight checks, you get mated on a2, or you get mated on e2 against the knight on c3. So we need to make it a little wider, so the right move here is... I mean, black is fighting a losing battle here. That's not gonna do anything with his pieces. White is totally winning here. A few checks, the king will just run toward the rook, and that's gonna be it. Yeah, instead, too bad, she played rook takes c5. And now e5. Maybe she thought I was winning, because... well, she opens up on the rook and attacks the knight, but Lushanway is a great tactical player of his own. So he plays this. And now, oops, if we take, then it takes over there, and bishop takes f6. This certainly doesn't look like a position white can ever win. He's advised to play rook takes f6 before it's too late. But then he can't win. It's gonna be a draw. She makes one more great effort. Plays in the waning seconds. She plays queen b7. And I was looking at this position, I saw that the best move was rook c to d2. The purpose is to bring the knight to d5. Because knight d5 right away doesn't work, right? Now, this is a different story. The bishop doesn't come to the long diagonal. And now white, one way or another, white will win this game. a2 is protected. And you're happy to give up the queen for 2 rooks. You still up the exchange. But rook c d2 would be the right move, because this is not so great. Now that's why I moved my rook away. Because I wanted to mate you. Of course I will mate you. So you don't have rook takes f6. Meaning that you don't have anything against rook takes b2. Black's out of danger now. Yeah, white probably has to play something and then knight d5. And okay, well, we have a game here. I'm not exactly sure what black is threatening to play. Maybe bishop b4. Yeah, who knows how it's gonna play out. Yeah, rook takes c5 was unnecessary. She blew a win. She totally deserved to win this game, but this was little too optimistic. But then she gets a second chance because Lu played knight g4. Maybe he just didn't see rook cd2. They were very low on time. And now with the help of the logical continuation such as this, rook f3, white would ensure sizable endgame advantage with the strong a-pawn. I don't know if it's a winning position, because there could be some situations where you do win a pawn, one of the pieces for that pawn, but then you cannot win because you only have one pawn left. But white will try to play for a win with no risk. Instead, Sapiko decided maybe Anish already finished his game at that moment and well, she couldn't keep her husband waiting. So she quickly grabbed that bishop and draw was agreed. To me, it's fantastic game, more games like this. Way to go, Sapiko. We root for you. I root for her so much, I want her to score more points in her tournament than Anish scores in his. Okay. Anyway, guys, so such was the opening day at Tata Stell tournament. Well, I know the Masters section will pick up pace probably tomorrow, so we'll be watching. Don't miss a moment of this tournament. Exciting times now, here on the Internet Chess Club. Thank you for staying with me and have a good one. Bye.